Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1660A, and today's date is September 10th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, The Fed and Former Fed Heads Are Now Worried About the Future of the Fed. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as this economy continually breaks down, and I'm talking about the real people's economy, the things that they feel and touch, and they realize what is happening around them, they realize that something is wrong, something's not right, and it's falling apart. Then we have these statistical numbers where we look at GDP, we look at unemployment, and you can completely manipulate these any way you want. Makes no difference whatsoever. And what we're seeing right now is two separate things going on. We have Trump and the Patriots out there where they're using the manipulation that the deep state, the central bank, has been using for a very long time and pushing it to the extreme. At the same time, they are preparing this country for a major transition. And we see there's already two narratives that are being set up by Trump and the Patriots. We have the news of FISA, the IG report, which might bring down the entire system. We also have the Fed raising rates at the same exact time. So basically what we're seeing is that the economy is doing well, if you look at these fake statistical numbers, and the economy behind the scenes is really falling apart, and it's accelerating. But Trump will have an out. And this is why they set up these two narratives. And this is where we are moving. And we can see that the huge push back in June and July showed that a lot of people were using their credit cards to purchase. Now, again, the central banks over time convinced us that debt was good. Put yourself into debt, it's fantastic. And if you notice, the corporate media reports on debt. Well, everyone used their credit cards. And it shows that the economy's doing great because they're out there purchasing. No, it shows that people are going into further and further debt. Their credit card interest rates are what? 12, 15, 18, 30, 35, 40, all depending on the credit card company. It's really like loan sharking, actually, if you really think about it. The Fed reported that in July, consumer credit posted a solid rebound, rising from $16.6 billion above the $14.4 billion expected, and bringing the total to $3.92 trillion. This is a 5.1% annualized increase from a year ago. What does that mean? It means revolving credit right now is at an all-time high, like we've never seen before. And it shows you that people are using their credit cards to get by. The problem is they hit the ceiling of their credit cards. Americans right now are tapped out, and they're struggling to get by, and they're using their credit cards to get by. This is not a strong economy. And Trump is out there, and he's tweeting about the GDP numbers. The GDP numbers came in around 4.2%. The unemployment rate is at the lowest we've ever seen, 3.9%. And he tweeted something like, the GDP rate, 4.2%, is higher than the unemployment rate, 3.9%, for the first time in over 100 years. Now, this statement is actually kind of false because we've seen this many times before. And people are pointing this out. When I start to look at these things, I start to realize I don't think Trump is actually speaking to the American public when he's tweeting these things out. Because if we look at some of his other tweets, and we look at the recent tweet with Barack Obama, we know that Obama was out there and he was saying that, this is my economy. I made it better because I inherited an economy that was a disaster, and I brought it up to this point, and Trump is just continuing this. Well, Trump tweeted out the following, and you're going to have to follow me on this. Now, Obama, in his tweet, said the following: President Trump will need a magic wand to get to 4% GDP. This is coming from Obama. Trump said, I guess I have a magic wand, 4.2%, and we will do much better than this. We have just begun. Now, think about what is happening here with all these tweets and going back and forth with the economy, and Obama coming out of the woodwork now and speaking up. This was done on purpose. They want him out there. They want him out in the public because we know what's coming. And Obama saying you're going to need a magic wand. Trump, he knows that this economy's fake, that he does have the magic wand right now. He can make the economy look any way he wants. He can make the numbers go up. He can make the numbers go down. It's all manipulated. And I think when he's tweeting these things out, it's not really for the public, but it's for the central bankers. It's for the deep state. I have full control over this economy. I can make it do whatever I want. I can make GDP numbers go to 5, 6, 7%. I can make unemployment go down to 2%. It's not real. And he's proving it by showing Obama, I have the magic wand. I am in full control right now. Now, the mainstream media, they're continually pushing the idea that these tariffs are going to hurt the country. Yes, maybe in the short term, it will not be good. But again, under the central bank economy, anything that's being done right now is not going to be good because it's not supposed to last this long. They were expecting a war, an event, to cover up the collapse of the system. And coming out of the mainstream media, they're saying, well, the U.S. ports are fearing that these tariffs could collapse ship traffic and reduce jobs. Because if you have these tariffs in place, we're not going to be importing that much because it's very expensive. Well, what about exporting? So in the short term, yes, maybe the imports will slow. Maybe they won't get the same amount of steel. But if we turn on the factories here in the U.S. and start exporting the steel from the U.S. out to other countries, the people in the ports, well, guess what? They still have their jobs. They still can work. So in the short term, we might see hiccups. Now, again, this system was not supposed to last this long. We were supposed to have someone else in office. We were supposed to be going to a war. They were supposed to cover this up. We were going to have a collapse. So we're definitely going in that direction. But things need to be changed so we can handle the collapse in a different way. We don't want to restart the system where the United States is an empty shell, where we have no manufacturing, we have no infrastructure, we have no jobs. Everything that's being done now is for the transition and moving away from the central bank. And when we move away from the central bank and we're no longer the reserve currency, remember the reserve currency is the dollar hooked to the petro dollar system, which is the Middle East oil. We're coming off of this. And this is going to be the transition. So everything that's going to be done, yes, in the short term, yes, we're going to see hiccup in the system. Yes, people might be losing jobs, but think about it in the other way. If the central bankers were in control right now with the deep state and we had a different person in the White House, everyone would be losing their job. Actually, the United States would turn into a third world country. Actually, Trump mentioned this before. This is what they were setting it up to be. So they thought they were going to lose their jobs before. It was going to be a lot worse if it was the other way around. Here, we're going to make the U.S. a lot better by bringing back the manufacturing, setting it up for the transition. Now, the Fed, they are very nervous and afraid right now. And there seems to be a growing concern these days about another epic financial crash on Wall Street. And if we go back in history, we saw many different crashes, 29, 33, in the 70s, 2001, 2008, 2009. So we saw a lot of these different crashes, and these were all orchestrated by the central bank, the Fed. And last week, JP Morgan Chase released a lengthy research report in which its analyst, Marko Kalanovic, suggested that in event of another major Wall Street crisis, the Fed should not only have its emergency powers restored to buy up toxic debt, but the Fed might also have to buy up stocks this time around. Aren't they doing this already through the Swiss National Bank? Yeah, they're saying directly be out there buying the stocks, showing the Fed actually buying the stocks, not hiding it with another central bank. Now, we need to understand why they're looking to do this, because a lot of the banks right now, they were buying their own stock. And if the stock market falls, what happens? Well, these banks, corporations that have been doing this, they go down the tubes. And they're very worried about this. So this is why they're making these suggestions where the Fed, if we're in another crisis, they should purchase the stocks by creating a lot of currency, and the government will have to give them permission to do this. And they can go ahead, create the currency, and buy back the stocks. They want to do what they did back in 2008, but they don't have that ability right now. It was taken away from them. So, right on cue, the three masterminds of the unprecedented 2007-2010 Wall Street bailout that included the funneling of secret $16.1 trillion in cumulative, almost zero interest rate loans to the banks on Wall Street and their foreign peers, had the idea and the gall to put out a New York Times op-ed that Congress has taken away some of the tools that were crucial to us during the 2008 panic. Who are these individuals? Bernanke, we had Geithner, and Hank Paulson. And what they want to do is they want these powers back. Why are they asking for the powers back right now? Because they understand what is coming. They understand that this system is going to be brought down. And they're trying to figure out, well, how can the Fed save the system and keep it going? Well, they need the power to create more currency, to prop up the banks, to buy stocks, and to do many other things that we've never seen done before. They know what's coming. And the Fed, the former Fed heads, they're very worried about what is coming, because think about what they've done. They propped up all the banks, giving them easy money. The banks bought back their stocks. Corporations were doing a lot of buybacks. They're holding on to these stocks. If the stock market comes down, guess what happens? A lot of these banks, a lot of these companies, they're in trouble. And who's going to be buying these stocks? No, a lot of people are going to be selling them, trying to get out. They know this. And they know they need the Fed to create currency and purchase the bank stocks and make sure that the banks stay, inflated. And if they don't have this ability, the whole thing's going to be disaster. Well, this is the plan. The plan is to bring all of this down. The plan is not to allow the Fed to do this. And we can see right now, and with the plan, they're not going to be able to do it this time. The plan is to bring down the Fed, is to point the finger at the Fed and say, look what they've done here. Everything that they've done in the past was an illusion. They propped up the banks. They funneled money into different areas. The whole thing was a gigantic lie. Now, if we go back to 2011, Senator Bernie Sanders added an amendment to the Dodd-Frank financial reform legislation of 2010, which authorized the Government Accountability Office to perform an audit of the Fed's crisis lending program. That report was released by the GAO in 2011. It completely disputes the assertion by Bernanke, Geithner, and Paulson that the Fed was acting in its traditional role as lender of last resort. The report stated the following: the scale and nature of the assistance amounted to an unprecedented expansion of the Federal Reserve System's traditional role as lender of last resort to depository institutions, and showing us that the Fed lied that they were the lender of last resort. And we can see that the Fed has been lying about a lot more. And when the Fed is audited and when the finger is pointed at the Fed, we're going to find out things that we've never even known. Well, we discussed them, but it's going to come out into the public domain. And this is going to be the time period where they'll be able to pivot away from the central bank. And those in Congress, those in the White House, those people in different states will say, do we really need the central bank? And the answer to all this will be no. It was a private company not working for the best interest of the American people, and it's time to take it over. It's time that the people control it. It's time that this works for the people, and most likely it will be nationalized, and the people will then control it. And hopefully, eventually, we will get rid of it because the government doesn't need it. The government can create the currency on its own. and it doesn't have to loan it to itself. So we can see we're heading down this path. The Fed, those people that were part of the Fed or are still part of the Fed, they're very worried about what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.